I'm so nervous below the surface. I want to take this ride to free me up inside. There's so much noise in my head. Kill this, I'm looking for some stillness. I'm diving down beneath where the waves will cease. Release, chitter chatter, be at peace. A new horizon, realizing that my heart is free. Opening up silence inside of me. So slow down, don't miss, it's like a gentle breeze. Setting your heart at ease from this storm to perform for the world to see. So before you drown, slow down and relax your pace. This ain't a race, just enjoy the space. Because silence isn't simply the absence of sound, it's more profound, underground where God's presence is found. Now right here, be aware of an unspeakable peace. As you unwind your mind, relax your soul, give over control to the one who has loved you from the very start, as you rest in his presence and surrender your heart. So g'day guys, I'm Father Chris Eaton, and as you can hear, I like to rap. And today I'm going to be speaking about listening to God's voice. And in that rap that I just did, the very beginning, there's an image of going down below the surface. It just reminds me of when I was in the Philippines. I was on a time of mission there just for a few weeks, and we'd finished our mission, and we had a couple of days of downtime, and we went to this island, and I went out with a couple of guys, and they went out earlier actually, and they went snorkeling, and when they were out there, they saw this turtle, and I'd slept in that day, and when I got up and I heard about it, I really wanted to get out there and, just see a turtle. I'd never seen one in the wild. And so I got all my gear on, and the guys took me out again. And as we were swimming out, we spotted the turtle. And so I went, kind of took a deep breath and went under the water and got close to it. And I really wanted to touch it. And so I dived down and, I just touched the shell. And then I watched this turtle kind of, going up for air. And when I was under the water, I just realized how, peaceful it was, and just the silence. And, on the surface, there's all the waves going up and down, and there was just the noise of us having a bit of fun. But below the surface was quiet, and it was silent. And today, speaking about, hearing God's voice, and how do we hear his voice? Well, one of the key things that I've discovered is just the importance of silence, because we live in a world that is not silent. There is so much noise around us on the outside, or even just the things that we have to do, the busyness of life, and even in the midst of this the time that we've experienced with the coronavirus, there can be the exterior noise, but also the noise that's going on inside of you, the noise of how you see yourself, all the demands, the things that you say to yourself particularly. And some of those things you can say to yourself can be quite negative. And to be able to go below all of that noise, even the interior noise, that there's actually a quiet and a silent place within you. That as you're able to slow down, that you can get into that place. Now, I guess it takes a bit of time to learn how to do that. And most of us can kind of struggle with that and then give up. But it's really key to be able to learn to listen to God's voice. And it seems like a really important thing to know how to hear God's voice. Because if we know how to hear his voice, then we can respond to him. And so to be able to take some time to slow down. And I found just a helpful way is, just to be aware of what's going on. What are those thoughts that are going on inside of you? And just letting them go. And not kind of putting all your energy in to try and get rid of those thoughts, but just acknowledging them and then just letting them go. I remember speaking to a lady, and she said something that helped is like imagining you're just sitting by a stream, and when you have these thoughts or these problems that you're trying to solve, and you spend all the time trying to solve them, and then they end up kind of taking you away from what you're doing, to just imagine yourself putting that thought on the leaf and let it going down the river, that you don't have to try and sort it all out. So I've found that's been a helpful little thing to do, and so that I can quieten down inside. There can be all the noise going on up here, but then just to be able to come down to that quieter place and, to learn to listen to God's voice, that there's actually a peace available to you no matter what's going on around us. So I think that's really the first point, to learn to quieten down and to enter into the silence. that can be quite a challenging thing, I know. But to be able to do that slowly is something that's really important if you're going to hear God's voice. And the next thing I wanted to say is that, it's not just hearing the voice of God just speaking some word, but it's about entering into a relationship with God, coming into a personal relationship with Him, that He actually cares about you and that He wants to reveal to you, His will for your life, that He actually wants to show you. He's not hiding, kind of playing games with us, that, He wants to actually draw us into a relationship and speak and help us to know, the call He has in our life. So a story that I love the story where there was this dog just sitting on the veranda of a house, and the owner's just sitting there as well, just enjoying during the sunset. And this dog just notices something rustling in the grass coming from under the veranda, and it's this rabbit sort of jumps out and starts running. And so obviously it's a dog. The dog starts to chase this rabbit, and it just follows this rabbit. It's running and chasing it, and running through this town. And as the dog is just running, other dogs are like kind of seeing there's some excitement, there's something going on. They start to join this dog and start to chase this rabbit. And so as they're running and running and running, and they're going for a fair long time, some of the other dogs that have just joined the race, they start to drop off. And it's at the end, it's only really the one dog that first saw the rabbit, that kind of smelt the rabbit and was chasing it. And the other dogs who were just running because of the excitement and the noise that was going on, and so they just started to drop off as they got tired. But that dog that smelt the rabbit, that could see the rabbit, didn't give up until he got the rabbit. And it's very similar to, like just thinking about, praying and the importance of prayer. And obviously I'm talking about that when you're learning to listen to God's voice, that you need to actually encounter not just a rabbit, but encounter God. Encounter His love for you. And so that's like slowing down and then just realizing that we have a God who loves us, that actually wants to encounter us, and to allow yourself to enter into that relationship. And so similar to that image of, like diving down below the surface, when we come to prayer, we can kind of just talk and, like it's a bit surfacey, just talking about the weather or something, or just trying to say the right thing to God. But to be able to deepen in that relationship is to be able to actually come to know yourself, and not just talking about, your ideas, and your opinions, but to kind of go to that deeper place and being aware of your emotions. I mean, particularly as men, not just young men, but men, we can find it really hard to be in touch with our emotions, because we can kind of think that's just for the ladies. But to be in touch with your emotions, that your emotions are helping you to understand what's going on inside of you. They should give you some clues to the deeper stuff in our life. And if we push those down and don't listen to them, then we're actually really missing out on a whole depth of who we are, but also an encounter with God that is, below the surface, that's actually getting to the heart of things, the things that really matter. So to be able to get in touch with how you're feeling, not running away from that, whether they're kind of bad feelings, because there's not really actually bad feelings, bad emotions. They're just there. They just give us information. And just to be real with what's going on inside of me, and to speak to God about those things. That God actually cares. He actually wants to know about that stuff. Even though, He knows it already, but He wants to enter into a relationship with us. Like you can know lots of stuff about people by just looking at their Facebook page, but you don't actually know them until you actually speak to them, listen to them, and hear what's actually on their heart, And that can be something quite difficult for us as men, and I'm saying that for myself. But learning how to just get in touch with what's going on deeper inside of you, then you're able to enter into this deeper relationship with God. And to realize that He doesn't just love all the good bits, but also the things that you struggle with. He's with you in that as well. You could be struggling with something like pornography, or you could be just struggling with real low self-esteem. But allowing God into that place, into those areas of shame in our own life, and to be vulnerable with Him. That's kind of difficult for us as men, but something that's really, really key. So the second point is to enter into that real relationship with God, a real personal relationship with Him. And as you do that, as you persevere in that, then you will continue to chase this rabbit. You'll continue to chase God, and you'll learn to listen to His voice along the way. And some helpful things in praying, because sometimes we don't really know what to do. We might pick up the Bible and try to read it, and it doesn't really feel like it's, just not working for us. A really simple thing that St. Ignatius of Loyola taught his men was the daily examen. And so this is different to the examination of conscience, when you're preparing for a reconciliation. But it's just to be able to think about your day, and firstly, just to be grateful. The first point is to be grateful when you do the examen. Grateful, just trying to think about what has happened today that I'm grateful for. If you had a real hard day, it could just be thank you, God, that I can breathe. Thank you that, I'm able to actually live. And could just be the beautiful day, whatever it is, but for just being grateful to God. And then looking at consolation. This is what St. Ignatius calls consolation. And consolation is the things that actually lead you towards God. So they are things that actually make you feel at home. They're things that make you feel more yourself. You can experience peace, but the thing with consolation is actually these experiences draw you closer to God. So you look over the day and think about, what were the things that happened to me today? The encounters I had might have been my time of prayer, that I felt like I was drawn closer to God. And so that's consolation. The third thing he says is to look at desolation. And so desolation is those things that lead you away from God, things that take you away from Him. Now, they could be temptation and sin. They could also just be a lack of trust, where you could even just be experiencing a real heaviness and a real dryness, maybe just the interior kind of struggle that can go on in your life. It could just be a whole lot of stuff that's happened to you in that day where you haven't been able to slow down. It's just been busyness. And these things can lead you, away from God. So that's the third thing in the examen, is to look at desolation, and just to see what's happened in your day. Then after thinking about those three things, gratitude and consolation, desolation, then to think about tomorrow. From my reflection of this day, what am I going to do differently tomorrow? Something I realized was certain people that I hung out with, I spent time with, I just came away from those conversations uplifted. I felt peaceful. I felt more assured. And so I would make sure that I would spend time with them, on other days. So it can be as simple as that. And the more you do this simple thing called the examen, you don't have to just wait till the end of the day. You start to realize things as they actually happen, that you become aware of God's presence when it's happening, or decisions that you're about to make that you kind of know they're not going to lead you to God. And so you change your decision. So in a really practical way, the examen is a really helpful thing. And it's not something that's kind of like up in the clouds. It's something that's very real, to learn to listen to God just through what happens to you in your day, and how that affects you inside. Okay. So my points have been to have silence, to slow down. And once you're able to do that, to get in touch with those deeper things in your life, the heart of things that really matter. And then a way of doing that is the examen, to slow down, and to, just to reflect on what's happening for you. Okay, so I guess those are the main things I wanted to say. Hopefully very simple, in learning to listen to God's voice. But I have a few bonus things, for you today. Just as we, I guess, come to the end of this talk, to to think about when you're coming to make a decision, because we are also talking about learning to listen to God's voice so that you can actually respond to Him. And a lot of us can be thinking about, what is God calling me to? What's He calling me to in the big things of life? Am I called to be a priest? Am I called to be married? Am I called to stay as a single man and to live out, my vocation that way? But it can also just be, what am I going to study? Even just as simple as, the kind of friends I hang out with. To decisions that you make, sometimes it's quite hard to make in the moment, to not be sure about what's the right thing to do. And so one thing that I found really helpful as a bonus is to think about, we're often like, when we're telling somebody else, giving somebody else advice, we seem to be experts in giving other people advice. And so you can think about your situation and what would I say to my friend in the same situation? And then listen to your own advice in that. Can be something that can bring a bit of clarity. Another thing is to imagine yourself, particularly for the bigger decisions, at the end of your life, and you're looking back to this moment and just imagining what would I have preferred I had decided. Because when you're coming to close to death, things become very clear. It's only really the important things that matter at that point. And so to think about that with the eye of, there's a scripture that says, may I know the shortness of my life, that I may gain wisdom of heart, to have that kind of wisdom. And something similar to that is also when you're standing before God in your judgment, that what would you have wished you decided then? Those things can just bring some clarity to these decisions that we make. Okay, so that's really what I wanted to share to you today. Just some simple points. I'm sure there's lots of other ways of learning to listen to God's voice, but some key ones for me is silence, to go to the real things, go to the heart of things, the emotions, and then having that time of reflection and encountering God in your day. Those would be the really main ones. And then just these other points, hopefully they'll be helpful for you. So God bless, and thank you for listening.